From David, Daut, Makala. You can choose to pronounce any of the names in any way you want, which is easier. I was born and raised in Lusaka, and I've grown up in Lusaka, which is the capital city of Zambia. And then I became an artist. I think I learned about photography as a question, which is like, is it a form of, is it art? You know, by asking that question, because I like doing, I do things hands-on. I had to justify to myself if it is an art or not an art. So the reading and asking other people that were doing, working using the same medium, it made me just really get and say, okay, I have to see what this language is about. And again, by default, it found itself, or I find myself being entangled within using the camera as a medium of expressing myself. One of my uncles in the 90s, he's a businessman, and he started out as a photographer while he was still in university. And that time they used to use a lot of dark room and so on and so forth. So sometimes he just close himself in the bedroom and make it really black for him to expose his pictures, you know. That's how a little bit familiar I became to photography, and that's the definition. And immediately when I became more conscious, that had been phased out, and there was this digital thing. And digital is always like, you want to know, and it's also scary, but then curiosity just led me to it, and then I found myself playing around people that knew. And by the time I joined visual arts, I found they had the dark room, but they were not using it. And then I started asking. When I joined the visual arts, I actually found that they had a dark room that wasn't really in use, because also at that time things already been phased off. That was in 2006. My interest was very much in painting, but then by asking the same question, and then it led me to just go hands-on. And I've always wanted to go back in the past and understand how things work, but today I'm doing digital work using a digital camera from that base. There were a few artists, and when I joined, I think I only saw 2 photography exhibitions. And then by the time I saw the 3rd photography exhibition, no, the 4th photography exhibition, that's when you came around. Okay. So the one I participated in was a 5th photography exhibition in my life, which was 2 years ago. So I'm a multimedia artist, and I really call my practice as prostitution in art. Not that I'm a prostitute, no, I'm not a prostitute, but my practice as an artist, I jump in between, and I like migrating one subject or one thought in different mediums to determine exactly which one fits, which language fits better with an idea. And so I always keep my processes very fluid. I've got very, very strong references to history, because I really like how history helps to guide a thought to form a possible future. And that history is very much based in traditional setup, because as African, that's one image that we always looked at. When people say naive, it's obvious they're talking about the tradition, you know, but that's a real life to me. And so I have my strong ties to my traditions, and then I also juggle the traditional information with historical European history, which is famous artists, dead or living. You know, I think one of my favorite today living is Kiefer. He's German, France-based artist. He's really good the way he plays around history and the way, you know, discusses the relevance of history. I also like John a conference. What is it? Yeah, the surname is a little bit tricky to pronounce, you know, but I like works of people that really, or artists that really look at history and the present. For me, I find if we have to move and change structures or politics, I'm not interested in the solution, but I'm looking at possibilities of forming up those solutions, how you get to a solution, and it's by only using these mediums. And I also really like interacting with people in different disciplines, because that allows me to see the subject or the thoughts I'm having from different angles, because then you have different voices or different eyes on a particular subject. I really wanted to continue with what I had done in the first workshop, which is the masquerade with a buffalo, which has got also strong ties in art. You see the bull in art, mostly in art language you find that structure. But this time around, when I moved around, I looked at what is happening in that small space. You know, I looked at the name of the street along the main street where the compound is, which is Ali Kinkata, and I started looking at exactly who was he and why was he honored by naming a street after him. And then after that, the whole area takes almost, with that, a whole compound is based closer to that road. So I then started looking at his songs. Very few songs from YouTube, and I still want to buy more, so I want to go and see if the ZNBCs, if they still sell those. But then because of the dates, I was looking at dates. I then started also looking at what the two are trying to get. The reason why people are in Kalingalinga, and why the government has allowed a project like that to happen there, you know. Otherwise they would have taken it somewhere else. So then I started looking at what is going away, what they're taking away, which is trees, basically trees and some houses that are there and stuff like that. And then when I went in Kalingalinga, I find also it's a lot of houses going up and some of them going down, and then also there's a lot of charcoal sellers, which is also some trees somewhere else are dying in the forest, you know, and they burn them up. And they're all for a good reason. They're trying to look for a bright morning, so they're trying to find the angel of the morning, you know. And then when that thought came, I think it's because I'm familiar with the work, a song that Nina Simone sang at some point, Angel of the Morning, and this first line talks about there's no strings attached, you know. You don't have to something, just real paraphrasing is like, you don't have to feel bad or to feel responsible because it's me who started this whole thing, you know. And then at some point also there's a line that says you don't have to take me home, I'm old enough to experience the dawn. And then go like, okay, when people decide to live in a compound, they actually say, don't feel sorry for me, I'm old enough to start my own life. So I go there as an observer, and then I try to engage with this older man who is selling charcoal, and I want to keep a positive conversation with him. And when I started out that conversation, it just really said an angel doesn't have to come from heaven. The possibility of the conversation you are having can define exactly who is the angel at that moment. And then an angel, when you talk about angels, is always someone also who comes in a space and then it becomes, because if an angel was to come here, you have a lot of attention that a lot of people come wanting to see. And I find myself also as an artist there as a stranger in that place. When I started having this conversation, people wanted to sell to me. But also when I said I want to bring in this photo shoot, I found that actually there was also that attention that I kind of drew. And I went like, okay, what symbols then do I have to use? Restriction or something that allows me? So construction of the work, I started looking at questioning the camera itself. And when you see a tripod, what the tripod means, you know, and what power it has to people's mind. But then I went like, okay, that's the same question I'm having with when you see a mask. But what if you take a mask and trees as wings and you put them up together? Exactly what are you going to have? And if you stretch them like this, it will mean probably no one should come no one should buy this, or everyone is free to come, you know. It's almost like a hug. So it's like you're in this space, and then you want to see that happy face that is really genuine, not a pretentious face. And that's an experience that I had. Plus the day before, I think 3 days before I went there, I found people playing football, and there was a road show the businessmen usually do that. They bring in a musician and so on and so forth. And it's a rule that most grounds, when you're in a football pitch, you use white lines, you know, and then people know when it's white lines, you don't easily just cross them because it's a rule. They know what it means. But in this space, they didn't use lime or any white chemical thing that you can draw those white lines. They used actually charcoal from the back space. And what happened, I found what happened is that people were just, while the men were playing football, kids were coming in the ground and women were passing. I went like, what is influencing this? And then I realized actually the people that are playing the game started it by introducing this black line, which was actually borrowing again from the charcoal, the angel of the morning. You have to deal with this situation. So that's how I was trying to, or rather I'm trying to play with this idea of a shared space.